What up, players? It's Warboss Tay up in this mug. So today we're going to be painting up an Iron Hands Mark III Legionnaire for the Horus Heresy game, or if you're porting them over into your 40k games, they look really great. I love this Mark III Iron Armor. It's my favorite armor to paint. They really do look like science fiction knights, medieval knights, running around with guns. So if you do enjoy this video, I hope you click the like button, leave me a comment and let me know what you thought of it, and consider becoming a channel member to support my studio if that's something you might be interested in. All right, so the first thing you do after you assemble your models is you prime them in black primer. I like to use a flat black primer and like a matte primer. I don't like to use any really shiny primers because I think that gloss is gonna mess you up. Then the first step you do is you take your dry brush. I'm gonna link below a set of dry brushes that I think works really great for these purposes. Just doing a very heavy dusting first of Corvus Black, and then if you batch paint or assembly line all of your models, by the time you get back to the first model, it's gonna be dry and ready to go. Corvus Black first, and then on top of the Corvus Blacks, you use Lead Belcher. And it's a really light dry brush. You want that Lead Belcher silver metallic shine to be almost like peeking out from the darker recesses that you've missed with the Corvus Black. And this is what it's gonna look like after you do, remember, first your heavy dry brush of Corvus Black and then Lead Belcher. You're gonna get this really dark looking burnt iron. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna complete the tarnished look by adding in some Drybrush Violet and Orc Flesh. Purple and green under black look really good, like really burnt, tarnished iron. And that's what we're kind of going for. So I've loaded up my brush here, and this is a different brush. This one is, I believe this is a makeup brush. And I'm just lightly going from top to bottom just one time with the purple. Sloop, sloop, sloop. And you don't want to go too heavy and you don't want to go too light. You want to make sure that you've got your wet palette around you and you can sop off most of the wash, because Drybrush Violet is a very heavy, noticeable purple. So after I thinned it down on my wet palette, you can see it's really subtle. Even though I basically gave this guy a shower of Drybrush Violet, you only see a little bit of that purple tint peeking out through the black. Now we're gonna go with that Orc Flesh, and the same things apply. This would be even more effective if you're assembly line batch painting your models, because then you would move on to the second model, doing the Drybrush Violet all the way down the line. By the time you get back to the first guy here, it will have dried already. But I'm going to just add it on while the Drybrush Violet is still setting, and this is gonna create like an oily sheen, like oil on water kind of look. And it's going to be mixing, it's going to be doing its own thing. So depending on what kind of finish you want, you can really adjust your application here. If you want very obvious differentiated tones between purple and green, I would say maybe wait. But if you want to do more of an oily, like oil on water mix, this is how it's going to look when you're done. Oh baby, I think it looks great. I actually tested this color scheme, the purple and the green, on this guy here, and it looks fantastic. Now we're gonna clean it up because the entire model is gonna have this purple-green hue to it. So I'm gonna be switching miniatures, let that first one dry, and we're gonna continue the painting tutorial with this model here. So I'm going to take one last look at the model I've been working on, and yeah, we're going to let those two washes and contrast paints dry, and we're going to just quickly replace them on the handle, that model on the handle, with this one. I painted a bunch of Space Marines in my time, and I think this method of starting with a very heavy dry brush of the Corvus Black and then the Lead Belcher is a really interesting way to approach it, and then hitting it with the glazes and the washes. And I'm usually just going at it with the layer paints and trying to achieve as smooth of a color transition as possible. So it was fun to do this new technique here. Now what I'm doing is I'm hitting all the silver bits with Lead Belcher. Lead Belcher is such a good workhorse paint. You can use it for all of your silver needs as a base coat in my humble opinion. I think it just is such a great all-around silver paint. And I'm surprised when I looked at Games Workshop's paint range the other day. I saw they have Iron Warriors, which is just like a darker silver. And then they even have an Iron Hands silver, which probably would have been good to use for this painting guide. But you know what? I'm just so used to the ease of use of working with lead belcher paint. One of the great features of the Mark III armor set here, as opposed to some of the later or even the Mark II set of armor, is that there are very clear ridged, raised areas for your highlighted trim. That means that you're not worrying about having to really edge highlight too much, because the edges are these raised lips on the armor plates. So we're just painting everything in lead belcher at this point. And this is going to bring up the silver on the front of the armor. The leg pieces, you can see all the leg pieces have a top and a bottom lip. And then there's also the crotch plate, as well as the gauntlets or vambraces and the elbow pads. Then you've got the standard trim on the shoulders, the backpack vents and fan areas, as well as on the bolter itself. So I'm a big proponent of working from the bottom up. So you'll notice that I like to start with the leg armor plates in the front, and then I work my way up to the arm bits here, vambrace, and the shoulder, or the elbow pads rather. And I'll get the bolter, the knife, and all of the silver bits that I missed before I move on to the shoulder pads, and then the backpack and the helmet last. You just want to get it as clean as possible. And if you make any mistakes, don't worry, don't freak out, because everything can be cleaned up. I say this all the time, but painting miniatures is a process of taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But taking that step back is so necessary, because when you make a mistake, then you clean it up and then you keep moving forward. It really heightens the final picture that you're making. Here I've got the spike on his helmet. I'm painting the little screws on the sides of his helmet, and then the brow and the ridge. I think some of these Mark III Marines have different styles of helmets and grills and visors. So just go with what you feel is going to look the best. You don't even have to do the silver trim. Just go with the spike on his helmet. That's totally fine. You might have seen my transfer sheet video that I did a couple days ago, and I'm planning out the transfers for these guys for this commission, and so many of them are clan symbols. And I didn't realize this, but the Iron Hands is unique in the fact that they have broken up their companies into being run by different clans. So even if you're from a different clan, if you get put into another clan's company, you effectively become a part of that clan. And I was reading the whole lore of this legion and the way they break down the companies and the structure, and how after Ferrus Manus was killed, they created the Iron Council, which is basically the heads of every great clan that are created to make this new breakdown of the Iron Hands. It's very interesting stuff, especially when you're plotting out where to put which transfers on the miniature. And while I was talking there, you might have seen I just brushed the ribbing behind the legs with lead belcher. I also did lead belcher for the handle of the pistol in the holster, as well as the grills and the vents on the back of his backpack. Very small, simple stuff. Now we're moving on to Black Templar. Okay, so this is an additional optional step. You don't have to do this one if you feel like your miniature looks good the way it is, but my client asked the shoulder pads to be darker, like almost like a flat black. So I went back with Black Templar. I didn't want to go with a thick, chunky paint like an acrylic. This contrast Black Templar paint is perfect for dulling down any of the armor plates that you want to be like a very solid, inky black. So this might even cover up that green and purple tint that I wanted to add, but I think it looks great either way, and if the client is happy, then I'm happy. So this was what I mean by don't worry if that lead belter paint gets off of the trim and onto the shoulder pad, because this is where we're actively moving forward and going back at the same time. It's like we're doing the splits because we're cleaning up that little bit of spillover while also creating the effect of a black shoulder pad. And now we're moving on to Rhinox Hide, which is a great color for doing any of the leather on a dark miniature, because the highlight for Rhinox Hide is going to be Mournfang Brown and then XV88. So we're going to build up a beautiful progression of bone colored, yellowish colored highlights. For right now though, we're just going to put on the Rhinox Hide as a base color. And normally what I would do is I'd put this miniature down and I would go on to the next one. That's what I would do with every single step. So I'd work on the shoulder pads with the Black Templar, hit every model, boom, boom, boom down the line, and then come back. The reason why this is important is because I want to go right into the highlights for this holster. Now, if I was doing a paint job, just working my way down the assembly line, then by the time I got back to the front here, this Rhinox Hide would have been dried, but it's not, because I'm basically moving on to the highlight while that Rhinox Hide is still wet. So I'm going to be actually doing a little bit of wet blending, where I'm putting the Mournfang Brown on top of that wet Rhinox Hide and just smoothing out the sides, blending the colors into each other. This is not so noticeable now. When you move on to this color though, XV88, then you're really gonna see the spectrum of dark Rhinox Hide all the way up to this yellowish highlight color. And remember, this is just one of two ways you could do it. The other way, which is what I'm usually accustomed to, which I'm not because I'm painting only one model for this tutorial, is to put everything in an assembly line and work my way down the line so that by the time I get back to the front, each color will have been dried and the subsequent highlight color will go on without having to do any wet blending at all. After having left that to dry overnight, I'm going to come back now with some Sotek Green. This is what I decided to paint for the eye lenses. I love Sotek Green. It's a turquoise color. There's a lot of bluishness. In fact, it's more blue than green. There's a little bit of green to the blue is what I would say. And I want the eye lenses to have this little bit of like a mixed color. Because if I went with a straight blue, like a Calidor Sky or a gosh, I don't know what other straight blue color it would be a little too ice cold. With the dark black of the armor, the silver, it's a lot of cold, cool colors. And so the fact that there's a little bit of warmth with the green, there's a little bit of a variation. It's not just a straight blue color. I think now at this point, I think what I'm doing is just going and hitting some, taking little steps back every once in a while. And I don't think I hold up which color I'm using, but if you can see, I'm just cleaning up some mistakes that I made. Anything where I missed a color when laying down the initial base coat, or anything that looks like I had a little bit of spillover, I'm just going back and fixing. I'm going to be putting silver, like a silver Aquila and a silver clasp onto his holster, just because silver is going to contrast nicely with the brown, whereas if I did a gold for both of those, then it would fade and or not fade, but it would get washed out by all of the brown, the warm colors around it. Silver, nice cool tone, and bounces really nice off of that holster. Yeah, he's looking really good at this point, guys. I'm very pleased with this color scheme. It's actually very fun to do an assembly line style of this as we move on to the known oil. And I love the the fact that you can get this army painted and it looks great because you're going to be adding transfers. If you've got the Iron Hands transfer sheet, you're going to be adding this realistic battle damage I'm going to be showing you how to do in just a second. Okay, moving on to Runefang Steel. Now this is where we kick up the highlights on all of the silver bits. Iron Hands are not known for being like ostentatious and flamboyant and very like elaborate with their decoration. They're very utilitarian miniatures. They're a very get the business done kind of army. And I love the fact that you can really have that element to your miniatures, but you can also give it some flair. Like they don't have to be boring. They don't have to look like just robots, right? Like we're gonna be adding in the dirt and the grime, and the eye lenses really pop off beautifully off of the face. And now what we're doing with Runefang Steel, we're just kicking up all of the highlights on the silver anywhere where the light is naturally hitting the model. So the top of the armor plates, ridges for the trim on the shoulder pads, the trim on the leg armor that really is facing the light the most. Just give those just a little bit of a touch from the Runefang Steel. You don't want to go overboard. It's very easy to go overboard with highlighting, guys and gals. And I don't want you to feel like you're taking a step forward and messing up the work that you previously did. So just very lightly, very minimally highlight with Runefang Steel. You're going to feel a lot better because you could always add more Runefang Steel. If you over highlight the silver, if you get that Runefang Steel over the entire trim, it's going to look too glaringly bright. You're going to kind of ruin the effect of what you did. So be more conservative with the application of the Runefang Steel, and then you'll be happier in the end. Now we're going on to Mournfang Brown. We're watering it down and we're seeping it into the lines. Now I've seen other people do oil washes, like pin washes here, and that's fine too. You could do that, it'll look great. I found that because I've got the Mournfang Brown already for the holster, it is a little bit of a tie-in to the overall look of the model. Now I might change my mind if I go and mix up some like dark umber with white spirit and do a little pin wash. But for me, just only working with Games Workshop products, I am totally happy with the way this reddish brown just sits in the crack between the black armor plate and the silver trim. It looks so good. And once it dries, because remember, we're watering it down, you're not taking it straight out of the pot. The more water, like right there, you can add to the Mournfang Brown, the more it'll dilute, spread out, look more thin, like a fine coating of dust and grime that's gathered in the recesses. Because the Iron Hands, like I said, they're not artisans. They're not interested in maintaining in the pristine look off of the parade ground for their armor. That's something like the Emperor's Children, or the Ultramarines, or the Imperial Fists would have, or the Blood Angels. They want to look pretty. They want to look, like the pinnacle of mankind fighting in the stars in the galaxy. And Iron Warriors are just like, we're here to get the job done, governor. This is the sheet that I'm talking about. This is the sheet right here. It's the transfer sheet for the Iron Hands. And I'm going to be doing the white Iron Hand symbol in one shoulder pad. That's the Legion marking, which is the Iron Hand in white, of course, because the shoulder pad is black. In fact, looking at the sheet, I don't know why. Looking at the sheet, I don't know why there is so much iconography in black. I don't know where you would put the black iconography, because Iron Hands are black armored Space Marines. We don't have white shoulder pads for the black transfers to sit on. So I don't understand. Like, maybe it's supposed to go on silver. I don't know. Like, why would you use the black transfers for anything? Like I was saying, I chose 2 clans because I'm working on 2 sets of 10 miniatures, right? So 2 squads of 10. So I've decided, after taking out my 20 Iron Hand symbols, that I'm going to be looking for through the clan symbols to find what I want to use because each of the clans, like I said, they don't have companies, they don't have like numbered companies, they have different clans. So I found the first one because I read the Horus Heresy novels. I really liked the clan Averni, and they're basically like the veterans, and they're the ones that the Ferrus Manus has chosen his personal guard from. They're like always near Ferrus Manus. They're like his most trusted company, his clan. So Averni is the cog with the skull at the center of it. And then I was thinking, just like looking at the other clans, I thought, oh, this other one looks pretty cool. It's like a talon of like a hawk swooping down, and it's right above the clan Averni on the transfer sheet here. So I grabbed 10 of those. I had no idea what the clan was. I just thought it looked cool. And then, you know what, I went and looked on the Wikipedia for Warhammer 40k, and I found out that this clan, Margot, is a really interesting clan. They did not submit to the Shattered Legions with the Salamanders and the Raven Guard after the betrayal at Istvan. They went and they said, you know what, we're not about that type of warfare. We're gonna take it to the traitors ourselves. And they just broke off from the rest of the Iron Hands, and they went crusading through the stars, basically. I love the fiction of that. They're very unconventional, almost brutal, barbaric way of approaching each scenario and each campaign. Like in the fiction, there are all these stories about how this clan was so brutal in their achieving their objectives. They really didn't care about the cost to human life. Sometimes they would use other armies or other like bait, the bait of a world, an innocent population, for the traitors to expend all of their energy and resources on culling, and then they would come in and swoop in while the enemy was weakened, and they would have an overwhelming victory. So the brutal guys. The fact that I want to pair them with the closest, most trusted, most veteran of warriors in the Iron Hands, I think this makes a great narrative scope for the miniatures on the field. And I think my client is going to be really happy with it. So that's one of those happy coincidences that I chose a good clan, two good clans, because like I said, there's going to be 20 miniatures I'm painting in this commission. So there you can see in the back, I've got my micro sol and micro set. I will be linking those in the description as well. So check those out. If you don't have them and you paint Space Marines, or you use any kind of miniature that has transfers, you got to get microsol and microset. There's just no way to make your transfers look good without this product, because it's going to soften your transfer paper, the decal. It's going to help you get them off of the backing paper, and even when you put them on the figure, the microset, it allows you to move the transfer around as long as it's not dry. I've had a terrible experience where once I put some microset on a miniature, I put the transfer on, and then I went away, and when I came back, it had like slipped down the shoulder pad. So you want to make sure that you are kind of monitoring where your transfers go. But here we go. You can see I've got my tweezers in the right hand, my paintbrush in my left. I've got the miniature on a handle. This is the best way to do it because we only have 2 hands. We don't have 3, so I don't have a third arm to hold it. So once the miniature is in a set place where I can reach that shoulder pad, I paint some micro set onto the shoulder pad. Then I dip the transfer into the micro set, and then I just very gently, and as long as it takes, because boy howdy, this Forge World transfer paper, it takes a bit of time to get it soft and soaked and ready to slide off the paper. And when it does, it's a tricky little thing as well. It's a little stubborn, as you can see here. I'm using a very junky old paintbrush to do this work, so it's okay if the bristles are all frayed and it's not exactly, it doesn't have a sharp point or anything. Then as soon as it's on, take some more micro set on your brush and just dab that micro set onto the transfer. you're going to find that if you're moving your brush around, you're going to be moving the thing around like it's on a shuffleboard, like it's a shuffleboard puck, and it's moving around on your shoulder pad. You don't want to do that. You just want to have enough microset that it saturates that decal paper, the transfer paper, so the paper is going to fold and shrink and grip the curved surface of the shoulder pad. That's basically what microset and microsolid, what they're good at. They conform a flat transfer paper onto whatever textured surface you're painting it on. Now, if I was just using water and I dipped the transfer paper into water, I put it on and it just dried off of water, then the edges of the transfer paper would kind of shrivel and they would stick up and fold in, and you would be able to see that transfer paper. It would just look terrible. And so the fact that Games Workshop doesn't have any product that does this, you have to go out and you have to get the microset from a different manufacturer. You just have to do it. It's such an important step. And like I said, I got a link down below in the description. It's going to take you to Amazon where you can purchase one for yourself, and it's really going to up your game and make your miniatures look great. It's such a small thing. You know, the transfers and the decals are like a last step, but it really is like sticking the landing of a gymnastics routine. We just watched the Olympics, and every time, no matter how good a routine is and how skillful the gymnast is, if they didn't stick that landing, then it just really takes away from it. So the transfers are the final part of your miniature. You want to make sure they look really good. All right, and the 1-2 punch combo that is microsol and microset is after you give your miniature some time to let that microset dry. It doesn't have to be all night, but it does have to be some time to let that microset dry up. Then your transfer is going to be less likely to move around on the surface of the miniature. Then you take your microsol, and just remember, it's sol because it dissolves the transfer even more. It's going to soften the transfer to the point where it's going to really make that transfer paper look like it got melted onto the miniature and that the design was painted on. I think I forgot to say, guys, the bolts in the clip were painted using Balthazar gold, and that's a nice brassy reddish gold color that you just wash down with some known oil to get down into the grooves there in between, so it doesn't look all chunky. But here is our boy. He looks terrific, even better with all of the transfers. The transfers, once they completely dry, like I said, are gonna look nice and crisp, shiny because of that Black Templar paint. If I wanted to dull the shine down, I would just spray coat some matte varnish on this miniature, but I love the way he looks. He looks like he really literally is just a machine of war, and he's been on campaign. His armor is dirty and weathered, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed painting, hanging out with me. Let me know what you're working on down below in the comments. I hope that I was able to provide some companionship and maybe a little bit of entertainment and education along the way. Don't forget to hit the like button before you go, subscribe if you're not already, and we'll see you in the next video.